Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm talking about the Elite Core controller. This just came out and I was going to spend a week to do a review on it and then give you my thoughts, but it turns out that it's very similar. Actually, it's identical to the Elite 2 that came out several years ago. So I'm just ready to push out a full review right now because I have been using the Elite 2 since the moment it came out. And because it came out all those years ago, and I definitely feel like I need to compare it to the Series X controller, which did get some redesigns. This happens to be the Halo edition, the 20th anniversary edition, and also I have to compare it to the PlayStation 5 controller. So I'm going to talk about some of the special features that are exclusive to the Elite series of controllers. And then I'm going to kind of talk about the ergonomics and the comfort and overall which particular controller I feel is better for most people. So let's just get right into the build and the design. So firstly, I want to say, like I said, identical to the Elite. So if you have held that controller, the Elite 2 I should say, it is identical. The only difference is, obviously, the core is white while the original Elite 2 is black. But if you haven't held any of the Elite series, the handles here, which I'll just call them that, they are a rubberized grippy pattern, and in terms of the way you hold the controller, it does help. It does sit in your hand a little bit better, and if your hands do tend to sweat, there's less chances of it slipping, and after longer hours of play, it does help. Is it a requirement? No. I don't think anyone's going to be buying this controller for the grip, or at least I can't see myself doing that. And it just so turns out the Halo 20th edition anniversary model here, and this is a regular Series X controller, but it does happen to have the same grippy texture at the back. So I don't know if this particular controller is still available or if you could get a regular Series X controller with this grippy textured back here. If there is, let me know in the comments. I'll try to do some digging, and if I can find anything, I'll leave a comment because the grips do make a difference. I'm not saying they're a requirement, but they do make a difference. Another thing about the Elite series is there is a built-in battery, so you're getting a flush back, while with the regular Series X controller, you're getting a battery door. So the Elite series definitely feels like one single block of material, the material being plastic. They're probably using a very high quality polycarbonate, which is what I'm guessing. So let's just talk about the PlayStation 5 controller. It feels just as solid. Just as solid as the regular Series X controller. And honestly, I won't be surprised if these are both made in the same factory and they're using the same materials. One benefit that the PlayStation 5 controller has over the traditional Series X controller is it does have a built-in battery, so you are getting a flush back, and you also get the benefit of charging from USB, while that's an extra accessory required for the regular Series X controller, and they're both around the same price. So I think the PlayStation 5 is winning in that regard. But obviously, in terms of build, the Elite series is going to take the crown, and it better, because it's almost double the price as the regular Series X controller and the PlayStation 5 controller. And before I continue, you might be wondering, why am I even talking about the PlayStation 5 controller? Because if you're a PC gamer, both of these controllers are compatible, fully compatible. So obviously, if you're an Xbox player, you're not going to care about the PlayStation 5 controller. But if you are gaming on PC, then that could potentially be a decision factor for you. Okay, so now let's talk about the specific features that the Elite series has. There's these hair lock triggers, and there's 3 different settings. There's a switch at the back, and when it's flicked all the way down, the triggers depress almost instantly. It actually locks it in place to where there's not much travel to actuate a press. And then the middle setting, there's a little bit more travel. And then on the top setting, the travel seems identical to what's on the standard Series X controller, but actually maybe a little bit less. And I'm only noticing that because I have them side by side. So I think the hair lock triggers are useful for certain games, especially fighting games. Also first-person shooters when you're doing any type of rapid fire. I think you do get a benefit, and I think you are going to get a bit of an advantage if you use the hair lock triggers. So that could be something worth considering. Another thing that's unique about the Elite series of controllers is the paddles at the back. And I know it's not easy, at least for me. It took me some time to learn how to use it. There's definitely a learning curve towards it. But once you master it, you Again, similar to the hair lock triggers, you can get an advantage in competitive shooters or even in single player games. And the reason why, your hands are always rested on the thumbsticks, and your index fingers are potentially either on the bumpers or the triggers. But whenever you have to use the face buttons, the A, X, Y, B buttons, you have to move your thumb from the right thumbstick to the face buttons. And going back and forth causes time. And in gaming, especially competitive gaming, or even fast-paced action games, every millisecond counts. So being able to keep your thumbs on the thumbsticks at all times and relying on the paddles for your face buttons, once you get used to it, it does make a difference. So personally, I did get used to it for a while when I was using the Elite controllers on the Xbox One X, but when the Series X came out, I switched over to just using the generic controller, and I lost that muscle memory. So I don't know if I'm going to get it back. And the reason why I lost that muscle memory is kind of the big one, and it's the comfort. They made some refinements in terms of the ergonomics in the Series X controller that the Elite controller didn't get, because that was based more on the Xbox One controller. And I know you might be thinking they look almost identical, but when you put them both in your hand, you do feel the difference. The Series X controller is a lot more comfortable to hold. And I think one of the main reasons is because the way it's designed, it slopes downward a little bit more. So your palm is resting on the entire controller, while on the Elite controller, it's just definitely not as comfortable to hold. But when it comes to the PlayStation 5 controller, they knocked it out of the park. The moment you place your hands on the PlayStation 5 controller, everything just falls naturally right into place. Even though the thumbsticks aren't offset, it's still a very comfortable experience. Whether it's more comfortable than the Series X, I still think the offset is the best approach, but the PlayStation 5 controller is great in terms of the thumbsticks. In terms of the overall grip, my entire palm and my entire hand actually rests on the PlayStation 5 controller. And when you're holding on to the left and right handles, it's just for a much more ergonomic and grippy experience compared to the Series X controller, and definitely compared to the Elite controller. And again, when it comes to the triggers, my index fingers just naturally want to rest on the triggers. And I think overall, the PlayStation 5 controller is a lot more comfortable than the Elite controller. So despite all the cool features, if you're not into all the customization and removing the thumbsticks and removing the thumb pads, which I didn't really talk about because I never really used them before. And if you're a PC gamer looking for a controller, my recommendation right now is the PlayStation 5 controller, or maybe the Series X controller. But if you're a competitive shooter or if you play competitively, the slight ergonomic advantage probably won't be enough for you. If you're already using the Elite controller, you already know what I'm talking about. But for me, honestly, if I'm playing competitively, I'm going to be using a mouse and keyboard. At least for shooters. I don't play fighting games competitively. I just don't have that skill to have fun. To have fun being competitive in a game like that. And there might be some other games where using the paddles might be a requirement, to where, and I believe even in the software, you can customize the paddles to be like different macros and such. So, I mean, but honestly, unless you care about those extra features, and at least with the paddles, I hope I convince you to maybe it might be worth a shot. And even the hair lock triggers, those are worth a shot. But if you care mostly about comfort, I really wish that the Elite Core 2 used a bit of the shape and the design of the Series X, because I know it's subtle, but the Series X controller is more comfortable than the Elite. And the longer your gaming session is, the more it starts to add up. So with that being said, I mean, I think it's a great controller. Honestly, if I'm playing competitive, which is mostly shooters, I'm going to be using a mouse and keyboard. If I'm going to be playing any other game that's third party, I'm always going to go for the PlayStation 5 controller. I never thought I would say this, but the PlayStation 5 controller is more comfortable than the Xbox controller this generation. Never, like that's never been the case. And on top of that, the haptic triggers on the PlayStation 5 controller create a much better experience. It's more immersive. It's at the point where I feel like I am missing out on some of the experience if I play a multi-platform game on the Xbox versus the PlayStation 5. So My order and what I'm going to be using, if it's a first person shooter, mouse and keyboard. If it's a single player game, PlayStation 5. If it's a single player game that's Xbox exclusive, I think I might still be leaning towards the regular Series X controller, because for me the comfort is more important. But if you're serious and you're hardcore, then obviously the Elite can be beneficial to you. And if you don't agree with me, I completely understand. Sometimes I kind of feel when I'm talking about Xbox and PlayStation, I kind of have to dance around a little bit because of the loyalty. I know I've been a fanboy for a long time too, and it took me a long time to be brand agnostic. So that's why I'm able to sit in front of this camera today and be completely honest with you, because I don't have any loyalties anymore. But anyway, I'm still interested in what you have to say. Leave a comment down below. Give this video a like. Hit that subscribe. I got a lot more tech content coming up soon. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.